there is a photograph that stops you cold. A woman, dark-eyed, luminous, draped in platinum and emeralds, stares directly into the camera as though daring it to look away. The necklace at her throat is extraordinary. 29 graduated emerald cabochons, slightly baroque, each one dropping from a flexible platinum chain set with old European and single-cut diamonds. It was made by Cartier London in 1938. It sold at auction in Geneva in 1996 for the equivalent of over 2.5 million Swiss francs, and the woman wearing it had spent her entire life pretending she was someone she was not. Her name was Merle Oberon, and the story of how she came to own one of the most documented Cartier emerald necklaces of the 20th century, and what that necklace may or may not have meant to her, is one of the most quietly devastating stories in Hollywood history. Let's begin not with the jewel, but with the woman, because you cannot understand what this necklace represents without first understanding the extraordinary lengths Merle Oberon went to in order to exist at all, at least to exist as the world was permitted to see her. She was born Estelle Merle O'Brien Thompson in Bombay, now Mumbai, in February 1911. Her father was British, her mother was of mixed South Asian heritage, and in the world she was born into, that combination was, for a woman who wanted to become a leading actress in Hollywood, considered an insurmountable obstacle. The details of her early life are, even now, not entirely settled. What the documentary record does confirm, through birth certificates located by researchers including Harry Selby and discussed at length in Marek Dolofsky's documentary The Trouble with Merle, is that the woman Merle called her mother, Charlotte Selby, was in fact her grandmother. Her true birth mother was Charlotte's daughter, Constance, who was barely a teenager when Merle was born. The family moved to Calcutta around 1917 after her father's death. She acted with the Calcutta Amateur Theatrical Society in the early 1920s, left for France in 1928, and eventually arrived in London. What happened next is the part the studio publicists wrote for her. By the late 1920s, she was working as a hostess at the Café de Paris, taking small film roles and catching the eye of the Hungarian-born director and producer Alexander Korda. He cast her as Anne Boleyn in The Private Life of Henry VIII in 1933, and in doing so, he also created her. The screen name, the backstory, the fiction. Because Merle Oberon, the name Korda gave her, was not born in Bombay. According to the story that studio publicists circulated, and that she herself repeated to journalists, she was born in Hobart, Tasmania, to a wealthy white family and had merely spent some of her childhood in India with aristocratic godparents. She told a journalist in 1934 that she was born in Tasmania, but left there when I was a child. She maintained this version for the rest of her life. Tasmanian archivists later documented the complete absence of any birth record for her in Tasmanian registers. The Indian birth certificate, by contrast, exists. Scholars who have written about race and the early film industry, among them Angela Woollacott, have been direct about what this concealment was: a necessity. The whiteness required for stardom in the early to mid-20th century was not a preference. It was a condition, and Merle Oberon met it at enormous personal cost for decades. She was nominated for an Academy Award for The Dark Angel in 1935. She starred opposite Laurence Olivier in Wuthering Heights in 1939. She was, by any measure, one of the most celebrated actresses of her era, and in 1937, a car accident left her with facial scarring that would follow her for the rest of her career. Cinematographer Lucien Ballard, who later became her second husband, developed a specific lighting technique known as the Obi to soften the appearance of those scars on film. Some accounts also mention reports of skin-lightening treatments that may have damaged her complexion further, though no primary medical documentation has surfaced to confirm this, and it remains an oft-repeated but unverified claim. What we know for certain is this. By 1938, Merle Oberon was at the height of her fame, living under a fabricated identity and about to receive one of the most extraordinary pieces of jewellery Cartier London had ever made. The Cartier emerald necklace was made in London in 1938. We know this not from rumour or secondary reporting, but from the auction catalogue of Antiquorum's sale, The Magical Art of Cartier, held in Geneva on November 19, 1996, which lists it as the Merle Oberon Necklace, London 1938, and cites Cartier Certificate of Authenticity number 2413. The Denver Art Museum's exhibition, Brilliant, Cartier in the 20th Century, which ran from 2014 to 2015, included the necklace and captioned it explicitly, Necklace, Cartier London, 1938, lengthened by Cartier Paris in 1963, given by Alexander Korda to his second wife, actress Merle Oberon. That caption tells us several things at once. It tells us that Alexander Korda, the man who had invented Merle Oberon's public identity, gave her this necklace. It tells us that the necklace predates their marriage by at least several months. They wed on the 3rd of June 1939 at the Town Hall in Antibes on the French Riviera, a ceremony recorded in contemporary press, including the Courier Mail in Brisbane. The necklace was made in 1938. Whether it was commissioned as a betrothal gift, a declaration of intent, or simply a magnificent gesture from a powerful man to the woman he loved, no source yet specifies. The sequence beyond circa 1938 to 39 remains uncertain. What is not uncertain is the necklace itself. 29 graduated emerald cabochons, slightly baroque in their natural irregularity, drop from a flexible platinum chain set with old European and single-cut diamonds. The total length was approximately 44 centimetres when it left Cartier London. 25 years later, in 1963, Merle had the chain lengthened by Cartier Paris, a detail confirmed by both the Cartier archives and the Denver catalogue. She was still wearing it. She was still having it altered to suit her life. The design is described by Cartier and the Denver Art Museum materials as Indian-inspired. The engraved, slightly baroque emerald cabochons and diamond rondelle drawing on South Asian jewellery traditions. This is a documented design attribution, not an interpretation. And here is where the story becomes genuinely complicated. The woman wearing this Indian-inspired necklace had been born in Bombay, had grown up in India, and had spent her entire adult life denying it. The necklace's aesthetic language, its cabochon emeralds, its organic irregularity, its reference to Mughal jewellery traditions, was the visual vocabulary of the world she had erased. Did she know this? Did it matter to her? Did she choose it for that reason, or simply because it was magnificent and because Alexander Korda wanted to give her something magnificent? Here is what the sources tell us: nothing. In the biographies, in the documentary commentary, in the Denver catalogue, in the press coverage of her career, there is no recorded statement from Merle Oberon linking this necklace to her concealed origins. No letter, no diary entry, no interview in which she acknowledged the connection. The absence is total. Later writers, jewellery bloggers, social media commentators have suggested that the Indian-style necklace was a private homage to the heritage she hid. It is a reading that is emotionally coherent. It is also entirely unsupported by any surviving statement from Oberon herself. It should be understood as a modern interpretation, not a historical fact. What we can say with confidence is that she wore it. She wore it privately. She wore it on screen. The Denver Art Museum's blog notes that she wears her Cartier emerald necklace, made in 1938, in the 1963 film Of Love and Desire. She had it lengthened in the same year that film was made. The necklace was, by any measure, one of the most personally significant pieces in her collection. The emerald necklace was not the only remarkable piece Merle Oberon owned, and understanding her broader collection helps us understand the woman. Christie's, in the lot essay for a David Webb ruby and diamond necklace that appeared in their sale, Important Jewels from the Estate of Merle Oberon, on April 22, 1980 in New York, described her as a passionate jewellery collector who favoured Cartier, Van Cleef and Arpels, Bulgari, Harry Winston and David Webb. That 1980 sale, held after her death in 1979 from a stroke at the age of 68, is the primary documentary record of what she had accumulated over a lifetime. The Christie's lot for a diamond and turquoise bracelet from that sale carries the provenance note, formerly from the estate of Merle Oberon. Previously sold at Christie's, New York, Important Jewels from the estate of Merle Oberon, April 22, 1980, Lot 307. That is a high-confidence primary source. The bracelet, oval turquoise cabochons, each within a circular-cut diamond surround, mounted in 18-carat white gold, is documented as hers. The David Webb ruby and diamond necklace is equally well documented. The Christie's lot essay explains that Merle set out to update several of her jewels, and that one such jewel was a ruby and diamond fringe-style necklace that Oberon asked David Webb to rework, ultimately transforming the jewel into the present lot. It was lot 309 in the same 1980 estate sale. After Merle's death, it was acquired by Johnny and Joanna Carson before being consigned again. The Christie's essay also records that she wore the transformed necklace as a hair ornament at Hélène Rocha's 1965 My Fair Lady costume ball in Paris, a detail drawn from archival photographs and press coverage. There are also 3 Cartier diamond rose clips described in multiple jewellery history sources as a wedding gift from Alexander Korda on their wedding day in 1939. 2 identical roses and a larger central rose with movable diamond pistils, originally conceived as hair ornaments but worn as brooches and as a bracelet clasp in the 1940 film Till We Meet Again. The primary source for this is Hollywood Jewels by Penny Prodo, Deborah Healy and Marion Faisal, a foundational text in the field cited consistently across secondary sources. The clips are described as having been sold separately after her death, though the specific Christie's lot numbers have not been independently verified in accessible records. A Cartier sapphire and diamond floral brooch, convertible to a clip, choker or bracelet clasp, is described in jewellery history writing as a piece she wore repeatedly in different configurations. The design's versatility is consistent with Cartier practice and with Hollywood costuming, but auction or archival confirmation has not been located, and it should be understood as probable rather than proven. What emerges from all of this is a portrait of a woman who collected with genuine passion and considerable knowledge. She didn't simply receive jewels, she reworked them. She had the emerald necklace lengthened. She commissioned David Webb to transform a ruby fringe into something new. She wore pieces in multiple configurations, adapting them to her life and her image. This was not passive accumulation. It was curation. In 1965, Merle Oberon visited Australia. She was still publicly the woman born in Hobart. Australian journalists, however, had begun asking questions. She cancelled appearances. She left early. The National Film and Sound Archive's oral histories and BBC reporting both document her discomfort during that visit and the pressure she felt from journalists probing her origins. In 1978, 1 year before her death, she attended an official welcome home ceremony at Hobart Town Hall. She stood in the city she had claimed as her birthplace, accepting the welcome of a community that believed her story. Marek Dolofsky's documentary The Trouble with Merle includes footage of this visit and describes her visible discomfort. It was her last major public appearance. She died in 1979. In 1983, Charles Hyam and Roy Mosley published Princess Merle, The Romantic Life of Merle Oberon, the biography widely credited with first publicly disclosing her Anglo-Indian birth. Drawing on birth and baptism certificates from India, the concealment she had maintained for 50 years was, at last, documented and named. Dolofsky's 2002 documentary went further. examining the competing Tasmanian and Indian narratives and the archival evidence in detail. Academic writers including Angela Woolacott, Yasmin Nair, and Mayuk Sen have since placed her story within the broader history of race and the early film industry. The structural racism that made her concealment not a personal failing, but a survival strategy imposed by an industry that would not have cast her as she actually was. The Tasmanian oral tradition, it should be noted, has its own competing claim: that Merle was the illegitimate daughter of a Chinese domestic named Lottie Chintock and a Tasmanian hotelier, supported by anecdote and photographs. The documentary record does not corroborate this version, and official Tasmanian birth registers contain no record of her birth. But the existence of this alternative story is itself revealing. It suggests that the question of who Merle Oberon really was has never been entirely settled, even in the places that claimed her. What is settled is this: she was born in Bombay. She grew up in India. She spent her life denying it, and she wore, for decades, a necklace whose design drew on the visual traditions of the world she had been forced to erase. The Cartier emerald necklace did not disappear with its owner. After Merle's death in 1979, it passed through her estate and was sold at the Antiquorum auction in Geneva on November 19, 1996, as part of The Magical Art of Cartier. The hammer price was approximately 2.64 million Swiss francs, a figure confirmed in trade press and secondary reporting, though the original results list has not been independently accessed. After the sale, it passed into a private collection. Its current owner is unnamed. The Denver Art Museum borrowed it from Cartier's own collection or from lenders for brilliant Cartier in the 20th century in 2014 to 15. CBS reproduced the museum's caption photograph. The necklace was, briefly, visible again, in a gallery, under lights, without the woman who had worn it for 25 years. There is something worth sitting with in that image. A necklace made in London in 1938 for a woman born in Bombay who told the world she was from Hobart. A necklace with an Indian-inspired design, worn by a woman who had erased her Indian identity. A necklace lengthened in 1963, the same year she wore it on screen in Of Love and Desire. A necklace that outlasted her by decades and now sits in a private collection, its story more complex than any auction catalogue can contain. Did Merle Oberon choose this necklace because of what it looked like, or because of what it meant? We don't know. We may never know. The sources are silent on the question of her inner life, and we should be honest about that silence rather than filling it with comfortable interpretations. What we do know is that she kept it. She had it altered. She wore it in a film. And when everything else was dispersed, the ruby necklace, the turquoise bracelet, the diamond rose clips, this one carried her name into the auction record. Not her real name, the name Korda gave her. The name she chose to keep. Merle Oberon died in 1979, still publicly the woman from Hobart. The truth came 4 years later in a biography she never read. The necklace, Indian-inspired, platinum and emerald, made in London for a woman born in Bombay, is somewhere in a private collection tonight. It has not been seen in public since the Denver exhibition closed in 2015. I find myself thinking about the 1963 lengthening. She was 52 years old. She had been wearing this necklace for 25 years. She didn't retire it. She had it made to fit her life as it was then, not as it had been. There is something in that gesture, practical, deliberate, quietly defiant, that feels more revealing than anything she ever said in an interview. What do you think? Is there a piece of jewelry in this story you'd most want to see again? Or a question about Merle herself that you're still turning over? I'd genuinely love to read your thoughts in the comments. If this kind of story is what you come here for, the women behind the jewels, the histories that don't fit neatly into any official record, then please do subscribe and leave a like if this one stayed with you. There are more stories like this one waiting.